My name's Jason Herndon. I'm from Kiss My Collectibles podcast and theRockologist.com. And I don't know, about a week ago, I got a message in my inbox on Facebook from Keith LaRue saying, "Hey Jason, need some help. There's a gentleman I need you to interview, if you don't mind, do a Q&A with." And I was intrigued, to say the least. So when he told me who it was, I was taken aback, because I've been a fan of this man my entire life. I'm a drummer. I've drummed since I was 4 years old, and so to be talking to this guy is pretty unreal. So huge influence on me. You know, he was very involved with Kiss, which hopefully we'll talk about, and later with David Letterman. And so enough for me. Without further ado, let's introduce Mr. Anton Fig. How are you? So, I just figured that maybe we'd start out with a few lead questions, and and then we'll get to the audience, and because I'm sure they've got a ton of questions to ask you. So, so Anton, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into drumming and music in general? What's your background?
I just, as a little kid, I just found myself playing drums all the time, banging on pots and pans, probably like a lot of drummers start. And my parents saw an interest in it, and they encouraged me. And so I met, young kids my age, and we just started to play. This was in Cape Town, South Africa. And I just always loved the sound of the drums, and I just kept going from there.
So what were some early musical influences on you?
Well, there was, the music that was done in South Africa then was like Elvis and Lloyd Price, some of the New Orleans stuff, like early rock and roll stuff, and then the Beatles came out, the British Invasion and Zeppelin and Hendrix and all that. So I listened to the heavy English stuff as well as the local African music. And my mom played classical piano, so I got a bit of background there. So I had a pretty good rounding of all kinds of music. Sure. And I guess Zeppelin and all that sort of predated what became more harder rock and metal and all that. So it was right at the beginning of all that stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. Mm. So, when would you have joined or formed your first band? When?
I think I was 8. And then when I was 12, we won the Battle of the Bands, and
that's fantastic.
It was on the front page of the local newspaper. It was a real small town.
What was the name of the band?
The band was called the Beethoven's Five.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So, so you got your first band when you were 8 years old, and you win the Battle of the Bands. I actually did that with a band that I was in when I was very young as well. So what about a more professional entrance into the music industry?
So then I played all around Cape Town, and then when I was at college age, I told my folks I wanted to go overseas because I felt all the best musicians were in America, well, some of the best anyway. And so they said, okay, well, you have to get a degree. So I went to a music school in Boston, and I got a degree in I did a classical program and a jazz program. Got a degree, and then I moved down to New York. And that's, I guess, when I really started to play.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, what would be the first record you played? Your recording. What would be the first thing you played on?
Well, in America, I think I'm not sure. It was either Lick Ray's first record, not his first record, my first record. Right. It was either Lick Ray, Bullshot, or it might have been Ace's record.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I thought, wow, they're all going to be like this.
Wow, that's fascinating. Yeah. So, well, since we got to Ace, So what was your introduction to Ace? How did you meet him? How did that come about?
So I had a band with some other South Africans called Spider, and we were auditioning bass players, and this guy, his name was Larry Russell, he came and he played with us, and we didn't use him in the band, but he said to me, I got this friend Ace, and he's doing a solo record, and he's looking for a drummer, and I'll get you an audition. I think you'd be good with him. So he introduced me to Ace, and I went up to some little studio and we recorded 4 songs. I don't remember which they were, but one of them was Rip It Out. And then Ace called me out, and I didn't really even know who he was, quite honestly. I was, I just come down to New York, and I was coming from a completely different background than that, a musical background. And so I remember the first thing I said to him was, are you the rhythm guitarist in the band? And so he didn't talk to me for the rest of the session. But we played, and then a little while later he called me and he said, can you come up and do another set of demos? And I did another 4 songs. And then he said, I'd like you to do the record. So at that time I was playing with Robert Gordon and Link Wray, and I went to Europe with them, and I came back from Europe and I went straight up to the Colgate Mansion in Connecticut, where we recorded the record. Eddie Kramer had a truck outside, and I was set up on the stairwell, and Ace was next to me, and his guitar amps were in like the dining room and the living room. And we pretty much recorded the solo record, just the 2 of us. And then Ace played bass on it, and I think Will Lee played on a couple songs.
Yeah, Will Lee did play.
And we recorded just about the whole record there, and then we recorded a few more songs at Radio City Musical. There was a studio upstairs. And I remember him saying, when we did Rip It Out, I remember him saying to me, because I just played it, and he said, no, I want you to play the same fills you played on the demo. So I went back to the demo, because that was just something I played off the top of my head, listened to it, and played it. And then when we did it for the drummers in the audience, Eddie Kramer said, why don't you double track them so that it has like a sound. So if you listen closely, you can hear the flams, because I've doubled the solo. But it's really like a really, cool moment in my history. And I've had like some great, the Foo Fighter drummers came up to me and said to Letterman, dude, you don't know, man, he played on Ace Frehley's record.
Well, being a child then, I can tell you it was bombastic in my head.
Yeah.
Really incredible playing.
It still is like one of my very favorite records.
Yeah.
So I love it.
So as far as you recollect, your introduction to Ace Frehley was on his solo album in '78, correct?
Yeah.
And the reason why I asked that is because recently Eddie Kramer has been recollecting that you might have played on the studio side of Alive too.
Yeah, and I think, in those days, people did behave differently, so you often can't remember what happened. So when I say I can't remember doing it, doesn't mean I didn't, but I don't think that I did.
Yeah, it would have been prior to when you remember even being introduced to Ace, I would think.
I don't. And then I listened to one of the songs and it didn't sound
like your style, right? Okay. No. All right. Well, let's open it up to the floor. And who's got a question back there? Hey, what's your name and where are you from?
Hi, my name's Christopher Williams. I live in Nashville, Tennessee.
Me too.
Right on.
Yeah.
I'm a drummer as well. I play drums for a heavy metal band called Accept. And thank you.
Accept.
First and foremost, Anton, I want to thank you for all of your drumming. I've stolen many of your licks over the years, and
thank you.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
As a drummer myself, and in my position coming up the ranks and stuff, I've had the opportunity to play with some of my heroes. And I know it's hard to narrow things down to just one specific thing, In all of your years as a studio musician and your time, with the late night band and everything, and all of your touring, can you give us maybe your top 3 favorite memories of playing that you've had? Be it with an idol or playing a specific show, or just curious about that.
Well, there's like so many, but I'd say, because I was such a Miles Davis freak, that when I played with Miles Davis on the show, that was absolutely huge for me. And he was I spoke to him afterwards, and he was very complimentary. So that was such a confidence builder, because I went like, I have a seal of approval from Miles Davis, and it meant so much. So sometimes if I'm playing on something and having trouble, then I go, well, it was good enough for Miles, so, So that was really great. And I have to say that I did the Dylan 30th anniversary celebration in Madison Square Garden, and I got to play with Clapton there. And, we played the song, and then he took about 4 choruses at the end. And the 4th chorus, he just went into overdrive, and it was like, this is Eric Clapton. Just amazing, to like a full garden. And, I guess also playing with James Brown on the Letterman show was amazing. When his band was supposed to play, they were stuck in traffic, and we were playing with him. And we played with him quite a few times. We were playing with him, and then his band showed up, and the drummer and the bass player started walking to the bandstand, and he just put his arm and stopped them and said, "No, I'll play with these guys."
We got another question over here. What's your name and where you're from? Oh, hey.
My name's Steven from Kentucky. Anton, my favorite performance by you has got to be the breakout on the first Frehley's Comet. The drum is so great on that. Is that something you worked out, or is that improv off the cup, or did you just kind of work that out? Because Ace seems to give you drum solos.
Yeah.
Rip it out, 2 sides of the coin.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, with the Ace, always let me play how I wanted to play. And in fact, when we did, what was that song on his solo record with the time, Why I Wiped Out, he encouraged me to kind of do stuff. So Breakout was pretty much improvised, just whatever I felt. We might have done a few takes and kind of got the best spots, but it was, just pretty much off the cuff. And I have to say that when I got to play with the other guys, am I allowed to talk about that?
You're going to be asked about it, I can assure you. So.
Hey, I didn't say anything about it forever until Gene put it in his book, and when they remastered one of the records that had my name on the thing. Otherwise, I never said a word to anybody. But anyway, they never told me how to play. They never said, "Can you play like this guy, their guy," or anything. They never said anything. So I've always felt like complete freedom to be myself in this setting.
So since you opened the can of worms, can you tell us how playing on Dynasty came about?
Well, because Ace's record had done so well, it was time they had to go in the studio. And I'm not 1,000% sure of the details, but I think that Peter had broken his arm. So, also, I had a band called Spider that I was telling you about with a bass player. So, thanks.
Agreed, yeah.
So, we were managed by Bullock Coyne as well.
Right.
So, it became like a pretty close circle, and Ace recommended, I'm sure he did, for me to play on the record.
Sure.
And that worked out really well, and that was, I Was Made for Loving You did really well. And I didn't play on Dirty Living, that was Peter's song, but I played on the rest. And then when it was time to do Unmasked, then I think they must have broken Peter's other arm, because they asked me to play on that again.
That's fantastic. So in the Dynasty sessions, how long was tracking? How long were you in there tracking?
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
I know I think we did it at Electric Lady Studios.
Right.
And I think that it was the last session they did before they took the board out and they redid the studio. We rehearsed at a place called Britt Row in Long Island City, and they recorded all the rehearsals and would pick out the good parts and all that. So there was a bit of pre-production.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't just go straight into the studio, and I think the songs were fairly well worked out. And then I just remember, like, every morning kind of taking the subway down to Electric Lady, recording all day, and then in the nights I was actually recording demos with Spider at Studio B.
Right. Oh,
At Electric Lady. So, I was just living the life.
yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, where's the next question?
I've got
Okay,
two.
right over here. What's your name? Where are you from?
My name's Fido Kennington. I'm from Flint, Michigan, and also being a drummer. And I just want to thank you for teaching me a lot through your recordings. And you mentioned, your beginnings in South Africa, and I wonder if you or Spider had ever crossed paths or had any done any shows with Rabbit or with Trevor Rabin. Is there any relationship there?
No, not really, because they weren't in Cape Town, they were up in Johannesburg, and also when they got big, I'd already left South Africa. I was already in America when they were big, so we didn't really cross paths. We knew of a band called The Flames, which was Blondie Chaplin and Ricky Fatah, who now plays with Bonnie Raitt, who's been with Bonnie Raitt for a long time, so we knew of them, but not so much Trevor and Rabbit.
Got a question in the back? What's your name? Where are you from, man?
My name is Michael. I'm from St. Louis. How you doing, Anton?
Hi.
I just wanted to ask, you just mentioned jazz as one of the places that you did your study. Do you still feel the influence of jazz, even though you're playing rock and got into that side of music more? Because I have always thought that you had a jazz background, me being a drummer myself. Just the way you do your tom work and stuff like that, there's that influence, that inflection that you see in jazz. So do you feel that influenced your playing from that genre?
Yeah, I think, I grew up on the English invasion stuff, so that's like Ringo and Charlie Watts and Keith Moon and Bonham and Mitch Mitchell and Ginger Baker, those guys. Now, if you look at Ginger Baker and Mitch Mitchell, they're both pretty jazzy drummers, and both were like really interested in that. So I grew up playing rock, but then I decided I wanted to learn jazz. I liked how it sounded, and I wanted to make me a better musician and a better rock drummer. And I felt what it did was there was a time when I hit New York where I had the rock sensibility, but with some jazz sensibility as well, and that's what kind of set me apart from some of the other drummers at the time, which is why I got certain gigs that I got. So yeah.
Next question? Is this the last one?
Hi, Chris from
Hey,
Minnesota.
Chris, go ahead. Okay, take two.
I was just expanded on some of your influences early on. Could you tell us some of the American type drummers? I know I was really influenced by a guy named Dino Danelli from the Rascals, and some of those type of guys. Were you influenced by anybody from America like that?
Well, I think Earl Palmer, who played on all the early Little Richard stuff. He played on thousands of records. Guys like Zigaboo Modellesti from the Meters. That kind of some of the funky drummers. There's a ton of really good guys around right now. Guys much younger than me that are playing fantastically well. That I love. I won't go into all their names here, but the American, You know, I mean, one thing that the English people did was they brought American blues back to America and to the public at large. But you know, you still go back and listen to, like the guy I'm playing with now with Joe Bonamassa, he's like, you know, knows like all about the Howling Wolf repertoire and the Muddy Waters repertoire and the Freddie King repertoire and the B.B. King repertoire and the Albert King repertoire and all that. There's just a ton of, there's just, you know, there's a fantastic music there. American music's great, yeah.
Okay, got a question over here. What's your name and where are you from?
Vincent from Brooklyn, New York.
Hi, Vincent.
Yeah.
Anton, you spoke earlier about playing on those Kiss records, and you didn't talk about it for 30 years or whatever until Gene mentioned it in his book. How did you feel like when I Was Made for Loving You became a big hit, and knowing you played on that, and you didn't say anything, but that would be something great to have on your drum resume for people to have as a point of reference.
Yeah, I made an agreement with the guys. Like they said, we'll pay you really well, but you cannot talk about it. And I don't know what it is like nowadays with cell phones and with the stuff the way it is. No one can keep a secret anymore. It's like it's nuts. Everything gets out. Everything is leaked. I mean, like we agreed, like you're going to play it, and we're not going to say anything. And so nobody did, and that was the end of the story. I wasn't even tempted because that was the agreement. And I would have been like, why am I going to screw up their thing? You know what I mean? They said that we pay you and this is in the agreement. So it was fine with me. It was never a problem. Yeah.
Last question.
Hi, my name is Amy. I'm from Newcastle. First and foremost, I want to let you know my father thinks you're the best drummer of all times.
That's not true, but
That's how he feels. He loves you.
A lot of people agree.
And I was out of the room for a minute, but I wanted to know what actually inspired you and who would be your favorite other than yourself.
I am definitely not the favorite. I mean, I like Tony Williams. I love his drumming. I love all those English guys that I mentioned. There's a guy now, Keith Carlock, that I really like. He's been around, quite a bit. He plays with Steely Dan, and there's a lot of great guys, and you learn from everybody, and you listen to everybody, and I think the key is like to not stop learning and not stop growing. And I think that music is something that keeps us all young and keeps you vital. And I just feel like a student, and like often I feel like just a little better than a beginner, because, and I mean that like really sincerely. It's like I've got so much more that I want to learn, and I'm just so thankful that I'm able to be out there playing still.
Fantastic. Anton, I hope you understand how renowned and respected you are in the KISS community. You're a true legend to all of us. And ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Anton Fig.